What's up, you guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Smart Talk, where we talk about real struggles, real stories, and entrepreneurs that came from the ground up. Today, I got the top-rated comedian in New Mexico. We got my boy Zach in the building.
What's up, y'all? What's good?
What's
What's good, guys?
What's up,
How we doing
Zach?
today?
Good,
Good,
man.
We
How
in?
are
We
you?
live?
Appreciate you coming on here, man.
I'm psyched, bro. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I seen a lot of my buddies. My buddy Jimmy was just leaving. You guys got some good people on here.
Yeah,
so
Thanks,
I appreciate
man.
I
you,
trust
man.
the process.
I appreciate you, man. You're a big time comedian in
I appreciate
the state
it,
of New
man.
Mexico, but I want people to get to know the real you.
Oh, yeah, let's do it,
your
man.
come up
For
story and
sure.
everything. So tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, man. I'm, born in Santa Fe, but I lived in Albuquerque since I was like 2. Mom's moved here with my little brother. Grew up here. Went to Valley High School. Went to UNM. Got my degree there in English and creative writing. And that's exactly how my family reacted right there. Silence. That was exactly how they acted when I told them I was getting a degree in English. They were like, "You don't even speak Spanish, eh? That's whack, dog. How do you get an English degree?" But yeah, born and raised, man. Started comedy here about 8 years ago. Just going to all the open mics and stuff. Started doing my own show 7 years ago and just been grinding since then. Been going out of state, doing festivals. Just really trying to make not only a name for myself in New Mexico, but outside of New Mexico as well. Like that's the goal at this point.
What led you into comedy?
Yo, I've always been the biggest comedy fan, even stand-up comedy. Like when I was a kid, I remember my dad would take drives and he put on Dennis Leary cassette tapes. And he's like an old school, like raunchy comedian. And I remember like bonding with my pops over like knowing I shouldn't be listening to this, that it's probably like too above my age range. But him letting me, it was like cool. It was a way we bonded. I remember to my mom watching like Chris Rock. And by the time I was in middle school, I was already buying my own like stand-up DVDs from Sam Goody, which I think I'm too old for you guys to even remember that store. But yeah, so I've always been a huge stand-up fan. But it wasn't until my late 20s that I actually like thought about doing stand-up. And I remember I was like doing some work for my pops at the time. And I was writing jokes and ideas. And I told my dad one day, I was like, "Yo, I wrote an idea for a joke." And he goes, "Well, when are you going to get on stage and fucking be about it already?" So that night I looked up open mics and I did my research and I found them. And the next night I went and I watched one. And then the next one night I went and did one. And then it was just like every single night from then. I just never missed a beat, like dove all the way in.
How was your experience on the first time in front of the mic?
You know what? Like my first time, it was almost all just comedians. It was probably like me and 10 comedians. But to me, I was like, I'm killing it. Like I thought I was like, I didn't think I was killing it, but I got this like, I found this like new passion. I was like, okay. And it was like the first time I got, went to a couple open mics where there was actually audience members and got some laughs. And you're like, the only way I could always describe it is I felt like an X-Man that found his superpower. Like I always felt like I was kind of good at stuff, like I was into breaking, not good at it. You know what I mean? Like into snowboarding, okay at it. Into bodybuilding, all right at it. Like nothing I was like, it was all just hobbies, but like, I don't know, stand up just hit something in me that clicked. And, once things started really going and I started traveling out of state and doing comedy festivals which was all pretty quick. Like I started going out of state like 3 months into doing comedy because I knew right away you had to go outside of Albuquerque.
Yeah.
And it was just to do open mics. But those people that I met in open mics then are still friends today. And now those friends are doing shows at some of the biggest comedy clubs. So through networking with them, like I'll go to Denver, I'll go to AZ, and now I have no problem like getting plugged into the best clubs. But it took years and years of going back to those places every few months and getting on a book show for no money, then getting on a book show for $40. Then before you know, you're featuring at the club and actually making money. And, so it's like, it's definitely a grind
process,
for sure.
yeah.
For sure.
How hard is it to be like really creative as far as writing a good script? Because comedy, you got to keep making up new jokes and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's such a like balance between coming up constantly with new jokes and then refining your act, right? Because it's like you have to have an act when you go out of state. You can't just. I think a lot of people will do that. They'll just come up with a new 5 minutes or try some new jokes at an open mic, and then they'll use that for their set or whatever. But I'm to the point I don't even really have time for open mics. Like all my shows are booked shows right now, so. Luckily, I've learned how to whittle in like new material into booked acts. So I remember when I first started comedy, I'd be like, I can't believe people are going to try out new jokes on their headlining set. And now I do new jokes when I headline all the time, but I think that's because where I'm at and I know how to do it. So I'll set it up with my act. I'll get the crowd going with crowd work and jokes that I know work. And then I'll throw new jokes in there. And if those jokes hit just as well as the stuff that I already have developed, then I know I'm onto something. If it lags and I could tell it's not as good, back to the drawing board. So and then it's also like now as a content, I hate to even use the word content creator, but is this a joke or is this a sketch? Or is it both? You know what I mean? So that's what I balance it out too. Do
you feel like it's a combination of like acting and then just crowd awareness the entire time when you're up there?
You know what? I definitely, I wouldn't want to say acting, but I always definitely say performing because I feel like 80% of comics, if not more, just stand up there and tell jokes, which is cool. But it's like that gets old quick and people's attention spans are so short. And if you're not in a very good atmosphere where people are there to like receive like comedy, like if you're at a brewery and a bunch of stuff's going on and people are walking in and out and the bar's loud, if you're just standing up there telling jokes, like it could easily get drowned out. So you have to be interacting with the audience, performing while telling your jokes. And I remember a comedian like a long time ago, this guy like Ron Funches said in his podcast, he's like, I'm trying to get on stage and see how long I could be in the moment before having to dive into material. And that like stuck with me. And I thought about it like a quarterback. Like how long can I sit in the pocket before I have to start throwing out my jokes, my real material. And that got me so much better at crowd work throughout the years because I would just go up there every time and not just like doing crowd work, like corny stuff like, oh, what do you do for a living? But addressing the elephant in the room or just stuff that's going on and having unique ways to roast people. Like if you go up to an audience and be like, look at this idiot's fucking shirt, you're going to lose this guy. You're going to lose the whole audience. But if I talk you up and I'm like, damn, bro, you got that Los Angeles biceps are popping, bro. What are you up snorting creatine in the bathroom between sets? Then if I make the joke at you, look, you're smiling. Now I already on my side. You know what I'm saying? But so it's all in how you address the situation.
Okay. So what happens if you tell jokes and you don't get the crowd response you were hoping to get? Does that kind of like kill your mood?
Oh, I mean, you definitely start sweating a little bit, especially if it's stuff that works. Like if you're like, oh, this joke has worked before. Then a lot of times there's so many different ways. I've seen so many comedians that will like not divert at all. And they'll just stick to their act, even if they're bombing and not address it or not trying to change something or, you know what I mean? So if I'm bombing, I will try to pick it back up with crowd work. I'll definitely go into another joke. You know what I mean? Like if I could tell I'm into a joke that's like 10 minutes and I'm like 2 minutes in and it's not working, that's now a 3-minute joke. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't ever like to sit in a bomb. I'll do everything I can to get out of it for sure. And sometimes it's just going to happen for sure. But I think with this much experience, I've at least figured out ways to get the crowd back up and stuff like that, especially if you're doing like an hour. You know what I mean? If you're doing an hour and you're having a toughie 7 minutes in, 10 minutes in, you definitely have to have some tricks to bring the audience back for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So,
Go ahead.
So when you're coming up with new content, for example, do you have like a set, like a set steps that you follow, or is it just like life experiences that you use to create it?
It's a little both. I mean, a lot of my set is life experience. I'm not too political. I'm not too like current topic kind of guy because I feel like you could tell those jokes maybe for a year or 6 months and then they might not be useful anymore. Right. But if you tell something universal or something relatable, you could use that act, who knows how long, for a long time, for sure. So I do use a lot of life experience, but in that I use a lot of writing techniques to punch up a joke. So there's a lot of like misdirection is the biggest, so pull the, it seems like you're pulling the audience one way and then you hit them with another, you like totally pull them the other way. That's one of the biggest ways to, bring a punchline, rule of 3. So funnier, funniest, funny, funnier, funniest. So you could punch something up, I think, I'm trying to think of a example I have of rule of 3. Gosh, I'll come up with something. Okay. But But yeah, just all these different ways to punch up your jokes. So I think stories are the hardest because you have to tell the story so many times just to get it out, and then you got to add the funny in. So a lot of times those could be rough to develop, or you want to like drop a story because you're not finding the funny that quickly. But some of my funniest bits are, I close with a story about my grandfather that got cancer. And that's like a heavy bit, you know what I mean? And I wrote that joke as if I could write a joke about the hardest thing that I ever went through, which at the time was losing my grandfather. I felt like I was a good joke writer. And there's a lot of like misdirection in there where it's kind of just talking about my grandpa the whole time, and then it takes a turn where he really likes, cannabis, but my grandma was against it. So I finally make him this cannabis butter because he can't smoke. And they used too much one night, and I kind of just talk about their experience and my grandma, having to crawl on the floor to make it to the bathroom and yelling at my grandpa, like, Lieutenant Dan, like, I don't have no legs, and all these, like lines to punch up a story. And you kind of will tell when you're like losing the audience and you need to add in the funny, or you should at least. But some of my favorite bits are just all Lifetime stuff, for real. And I even talk about getting shot on stage too, so.
Yeah, I remember that one. I watched that one.
What happened with that story?
Shit, I mean, that's so involved. So on 4/20/2022, they had the roast of me at Revel to celebrate 5 years of me doing comedy in New Mexico at the time. We sold it out, had an amazing show. It was like over 200 people there at Revel. And then 2 hours later, I was walking my dogs literally about 100 yards away from here and got shot by a random car, pulled it up with a bunch of young ass kids in it, man. Probably couldn't even buy a drink. Like, that's how sad it is. But
was it because you're a comedian, or it was just random?
No, it was just random. Yeah, it was. They pulled in the alley, and I was back there. My dogs were using the restroom, and kind of exchanged some words real quick. And 15 seconds later, was shot. And luckily, I had some good friends that took me to the hospital and took care of me and stuff like that. But I mean, it definitely changed everything, man. I don't go out anymore for sure. I'm also 36, so what the hell do I have to? 36-year-old do it at FX? What are we doing? What are we doing, bro? They're all on like ecstasy and I'm on melatonin. Like, it's not that hot. The girl's like, can I have some? I'm like, this is my and she thinks it's like a DMT inhaler. I'm like, no, it's albuterol. I have asthma. Like, it's not that sexy. So, I really don't go out anymore, man. And it's not just that. Like, I'm so focused on comedy. When it's after a comedy show, I'll kick it for a while. I'll kick it with the homies. I'll talk to the audience for sure, but once they're like, hey, we're going to go to this spot or the after party, pieces. I'll see you on the next move. I'm good on that. Not too much good stuff happens at after parties in Albuquerque, New Mexico at 2 a.m. So I feel like you've both been there before.
Yeah. Definitely aware of it.
Yeah, so
I know you have a passion for being a comedian, but is it a lucrative income?
I'll be honest. I mean, hell no, bro. Hell no. And even when you get to the point, this is the craziest part about comedy, is like you want to get to the clubs. The clubs pay the worst. So I'll be real with you. You go to do a weekend at the club, they could pay you $25 a show if you're the host. So you could do 4 shows for the whole weekend and make $100. What are you going to do with that? You know what I'm saying?
Pay fucking gas.
Pay the gas money to get
Yeah,
there.
like what are you going to do with that? So so the places you want to be, the clubs, and unless you're the headliner. Yeah, if you're the headliner and you're doing the weekend, you're making money. But until you're really that dude, it's not really lucrative. But where you do make money and where's not the fun stuff is the private events, the corporate events, which could be nightmares because you're going up and performing for like a teacher's conference for like 800 teachers that are having training. They're not there for comedy. They've been there for 8 hours doing a seminar. And now you're going to go up and be like, don't you like tamales, bitch? Or whatever. I don't know. And they're just like, so granted, I've had some of my funnest times at those. I'm not knocking them all. I think the weird stuff is where you grow for sure. But that's the stuff that pays. You can make some bank doing colleges, private corporate events. But yeah, so that's not where you want to be though. Is 3 p.m. on a Tuesday at the Marriott.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, I guess my first college experience was actually going to a comedy show, like my first day there, and I was like, why the fuck are we having comedy?
Oh yeah, that's how I feel. Like you're like, yo, I'm already overwhelmed. I have 18 credit hours. Be like, I already failed trigonometry once. I need a Pell Grant to get through. But I got a party to go to on Friday, and now this idiot's coming out here.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
it was just odd.
Yeah.
Like I didn't expect that to be a place for it, you know.
But some of the weirdest stuff, like I did an event a couple weeks ago with my boy Tyler. We did the Albuquerque food truck park or something like that. Outdoor event. I did one once for them that was pretty fun. He did something called the TikTok Fest, where he invited all these influencers out, and I just got to roast them. I'm into that. That's fun. But this time he's like, all right, I'm going to have a back to school summer party, and it was supposed to be for adults, private event. He's like, I just need to do 15 minutes. You could be dirty, do whatever you want. They preferred that because it was going to be like an adult event. The week of, they changed it to a public, family-friendly event with bounce houses and slides and all. And me and my homie, and it was not promoted. We pulled up, it was like 30 people. There was a few families and their kids. And there's a magician that went before us. And then my boy goes up. He's literally talking to like one kid. He's getting drowned out by like the sound of a bounce house's like, you know, like the
screaming,
yeah, dude, like it. And I went up there and I talked to like, I basically was doing crowd work to kids, but I had a blast. And we got some really funny moments. Like we're supposed to be clean, so I'm just like joking, like, oh, who's your favorite wrestler? And just like doing this, like messing with him. And then he's like talking to his friend. This kid comes up, no joke. This like 10-year-old kid has a metal leash on. And I was like, yo, what's up with the leash, bro? Like, you're that bad of a kid? You're that kid that needs to be on a leash? And his friend goes, he's zesty.
He's
And I just like, I laughed out. I was like, oh shit, you zesty? And then his other friend goes, he's gay. And I'm just like, well, you know, it's 2025, bro. You can be whatever you want. Just trying to like I was all, I can't speak on that, but you guys can say whatever you want. You guys can be free. Like,
Oh shit.
then I told him to RKO his homie in the bounce house, and he almost broke his neck. So I had to stop doing crowd work at that point. I just started doing. Yeah, so yeah, it just, I have great times. And I did something really fun recently called the Dab Roast down in Las Cruces. That was kind of a different event. It was put on by Redman from like Method Man and Redman. And it was basically a roast where you had to take a dab and then do like roast a comedian right after. And then if you either fumbled your joke or hesitated or your joke bombed, the crowd would go dab it, dab, and you had to take another dab and then come back with a joke. And I ended up like winning the whole competition. And that was like Redman was standing right next to me the whole time, bro. Like I felt like I was in How High. I was in that shit.
You didn't get high out of your mind?
Oh, I mean, dabbing, I'll be honest, if I'm good at two things, it's dabbing and roasting. If I was built for that, they hit me up and I was like, oh, I've been training my whole life for this.
It's a perfect opportunity.
So I showed up. Yeah, it was fun. I actually went against Dizzy in the first round.
Really? Okay.
And loved the homie, but smoked him up. I smoked him up so hard that they do like a crowd like judge to see who won the round. And they're like, yeah, we're not even going to judge this one. And then I won the second one in a tiebreaker. So that was kind of dope because they got to the wire on that one. And I won it in the tiebreaker round. And then in the third round, I went against this dude in El Paso. And I felt like I had the upper hand like the whole time. I was kind of having the stronger round for sure, getting stronger reactions. And then out of nowhere, he's like, nobody here even knows who the fuck you are. And I like didn't even hesitate, and I took the biggest chance, and I was all, everybody here knows who the fuck I am. I hold it down for New Mexico. I was all, make some noise if you know who I am. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't know if anybody there knew who the fuck I was. And everybody started cheering. And like Redman was like, I looked at him, he like jaw dropped. Bro, if that crowd would have went silent, I would have been cooked. I'd have been done then and there. He would have been like, see, nobody here knows you.
That would have been bad.
And then he like fumbled his next joke. So the crowd was like, dab it, dab it. And I was like, and he started dabbing and he started like coughing on his dab. And I was like, this dude's out here choking like Rabbit from 8 Mile. And I wasn't even supposed to, like, I wasn't even supposed to do a joke, but I was just kind of like hammering him in. And I let him come back with his joke, and he started like telling a joke, and he started like coughing again. And the crowd was like, boo. And they're like, it was like 10, because it's a 5-minute round. So like 10, 9. And I grabbed 2 rigs and started ripping them at the same time. And the audience like started cheering, and they're like, time. And then they go, okay, whoever like wins the crowd vote gets to go into, you got to go into a 10-minute set immediately. And the homie goes, he's like, oh, I don't even think I could do a 10-minute set right now. I was like, don't worry, guys, I got you. And then I won the vote and got to go right into a 10-minute set. And it's supposed to be sold on like Netflix or YouTube or Hulu or something. So they're supposed to drop that on something dope pretty soon. So
Really?
That's
yeah.
dope. I would definitely want to watch that.
So it's pretty cool, man. I've done a lot of the local stuff. I've luckily held my own show at Dry Heat for years. I now have it at Marble Heights, which is like, if you think of a brewery in Albuquerque, Marble's definitely one of the top ones. I love this. They have great marketing and support. My boy Evan over there runs that, who also runs the roast battles here in Albuquerque. If you have been to one of the comedy roast battles, definitely check them out. They're probably one of the funnest shows we have. If you like roasting, man, for sure, bring that Iranian haircut and get it cooked up, baby boy. We'll do it, dog. We'll do it. But yeah, so I've been, running that show for a long time now, and luckily get a lot of love, yo. I think I've put my stamp on New Mexico comedy, and I always would talk about this as like, even when I was like breaking in hip hop, and I would say the hip hop and the comedy community is like a quilt. You make your square and you add it to the quilt. That's your contribution. You add to the scene. You don't just take that quilt and put it on and be like, I'm comedy now, or I'm hip hop now, because people will see right through that shit. We'll see you faking the funk quick. Yeah. So it's like, I've been producing shows in Albuquerque for 7 years, all across New Mexico. I've put probably hundreds of comedians on stage, as well as myself. Organically won Albuquerque's Best of the Magazine, organically won New Mexico Entertainment's Best of, and then just won the paper's, Best New Mexico. And I didn't even know that was happening until I won it as well. So I think at this goal, I'll be honest with you, it's not just like cementing New Mexico as a more positive spot, because that's definitely like my goal. If you see my content, I never punch down on New Mexico. I live right around the corner. I don't ever film people. That's like one of my biggest things. Like, I'll never film someone hurting for views. Like, that's super corny. That's super cringe. And I'll always punch up on New Mexico. There's enough people using our, negative stereotypes. There's enough horrible TikToks where you see in the war zone. I mean, in the last month, two of the biggest YouTubers have put out news segments on New Mexico and Albuquerque. Yeah. It's all in the war zone. And we're so much doper than that. So my goal is not only to uplift New Mexico and show a brighter light, show that we're not all just like the most hood place. We are. I've been shot. It is what it is. But we're also doper than that, for sure. And my goal with comedy right now is I feel like I've done a lot in New Mexico, and my goal is to separate myself from the pack now. And I think I'm doing that. And because I'll be honest with you, the clubs, they don't mess with you until you got like 100,000 followers. And I've seen it before. I've seen people that have like the 20 years experience and the no followers get no love. And I've seen the dude that has a couple viral videos and he may have like 150,000 followers, but has only been doing comedy for like a year, and he's getting weekends. So it's like, you could get on stage as much as you can, and that's still the goal. But I could get on stage in front of, I go open mic in front of a handful of people, a small show in front of 40 people, or even a packed, sold out show and he has like 300 people. But if you have a clip that gets like 100,000 views, you know what I mean? You're like, even I tell myself, like, I have a clip that, gets 5,000 views, I get pretty down on myself. You know how long it takes you to get in front of 5,000 people in New Mexico live?
Yeah.
So I always tell these comedians, you got to be putting out the content. You got to be, and they're like, well, I'm not ready. Like, well, when are you going to be ready? You know what I'm saying? So, and that's what's moved the needle. Like I said, all those awards haven't moved the needle. All those awards did was make it tougher for me to come on stage. Because when you get your intro, they're like, this guy's the funniest guy in New Mexico. He's won every award you can imagine. He's the best there's ever been. And then you have this just expectation of the audience is already like so up here. So when they're like, what is your intro? I'm like, out into Albuquerque towards the southwest. Like, keep it simple. I don't want them to think, they don't need to build me up to there. And like I was saying, a lot of times those people with those awards, you win those awards and they're like, do you want to buy $1,000 frame with your award? I'm like, nah. You want to come to the after party, but you have to buy tickets? Nah. I'm good on that, bro.
I feel like it should be given to you.
Yeah.
For the award, right?
I mean, I got a gig writing at the paper and they wanted me to, I had an interview for it, writing comedy for the paper. And then I got the gig and they're like, I was like, what's the pay? And they're like, oh, it's no pay.
What the?
They're like, it's promotion for you. And I'm like, I've had 2 million views on my socials in the last month. I don't even think 2 million people are reading the newspaper in Albuquerque. So
I think we got
how
2
is
million
it?
people in
How, yeah,
Albuquerque,
yeah. So, yo, a lot of times you get to steps and like you got to realize that you got to create your lane.
Mm-hmm.
You got to create your lane, and you got to be happy with what you're doing, because people will try to take advantage of you left and right, ride your coattails if you get to a certain level. You know, it's very opportunistic, but if you're just happy with what you're doing, if you're happy with the content you're putting out there, if you're getting, you know, happy with the love that you're getting, and you're able to just wash away those negative comments, it makes this shit a lot easier, for sure, for sure.
What do you think? Where do you think New Mexico stands in the comedy opportunity realm? I guess. Like, do you think people are being more valued here, or still kind of?
Well, you know what? It's been a whole new ballgame in the last couple of years. I mean,
It's been some
for the
clubs
first
opening.
the first 6 years I did comedy, there wasn't even clubs here at all. So we were using breweries, coffee shops, random event spaces. And there was Dry Heat, which was dope, owned by a comedian, Sarah Kennedy, and her wife. They did their most of what they could do for a comedian opening up a club.
Yeah.
But that still only sat like 50 people. You know what I mean? So, but now that we have Casadas, which is a club that's bringing in big headliners, we have Hyenas, which is a chain comedy club, bringing in not only big headliners, but also like up-and-comers too. It is definitely giving people way more opportunities than when I first started. So, you know, I think 15 years ago, even 20 years ago, was like move to LA, New York, get on the Tonight Show. That's how you do it. But now it's like the tool is like right here, right? It's right in your hand. So it's, if you could grow the following from right there, it all depends on you and your hustle. Find your niche, find your people. But I've seen some comedians really like make some moves, man. You know, if you could get on Don't Tell, if you get on Kill Tony. I've seen some friends go from up-and-comers to headliners in a couple months. So the opportunities are definitely there.
And how does it differ, like doing content live and then, or not content, but doing a show live and then doing content, just recording yourself? What's the difference?
Well, the difference is you have all the time in the world to edit and you know, make it perfect or not perfect, right? When you're on and maybe it takes longer to get the feedback online, right? You usually know right away. Your shit usually pops right away, so you kind of know. But sometimes like it takes longer. When you tell a joke on stage, you know exactly that moment if it works or not. You know what I'm saying? So you can't hide behind 50 takes, a filter, a song, someone else's audio that you're just voicing over.
Can't delete it. Okay, makes sense.
So, but I definitely think it's all about using the tools. Everybody wanted to start a podcast 5 years ago. I think the new way, if you're smart about it and can build a following, is like streaming.
Yeah.
Like the most famous people 5 years ago were podcasters, right? Joe Rogan. And now who's the most famous people? Kai Cenat, iShowSpeed. And if you think about it, streaming is kind of like podcasting still in a way. It's all the same.
Yeah.
But so it's like, that's where my goal is. Like, I have a nice little following here. I've sold out shows. I'm doing my thing here, and it's dope. Continuing to do that. But now how can I build a following outside of New Mexico and just keep growing? For sure. For sure.
Have you faced any roadblocks or, you know?
Definitely. You know, obviously getting shot, you know, pandemic, huge roadblock. That slowed everything down. I was finally getting into the clubs and everything during that time. And then clubs shut down for a few years, and it felt like that process had to start all over again when it opened. You know, getting shot health-wise, huge drop back, you know what I mean? But that temporarily, I was just a healing kind of thing. But I'll be honest, I think the biggest drawback is finances. Like if you're not, you know, if you don't have a pretty solid income, it's really hard to be on the road and travel. You know, right now I have this company that books me for shows all over the country, and they send me lists every week. But I can't go to Connecticut for $200 and no hotel. You know what I'm saying? Like even when I went to Denver this last week, I spent as much money as I made on one of the nights of my hotels. You know, so the second night I stayed at a homie's house. The third night, me and a comedian got a room together, saved some money. So you find ways to do it. But I think finances, if I was just caked, I could just go on a tour and get hotels and book myself at clubs. But, you know, I think if you're not, when you're balancing financial responsibilities and stuff like that, that's what makes it harder, I think, at this point to advance. I'd love to go to Austin and just be there for like a month to just try up or kill Tony 4 times in a row. Or I'd love to be gone for 3 months, but it's just like, how are bills going to be paid for 3 months? Who's going to watch my dogs? Who's going to, how am I going to make money making $40 a night at the Coffee Lounge? So that's the hardest part, I think.
Do you have an actual job you do?
So I have a couple different. So my little side gig is I work for VM Coffee, which is right down the road. Love them. I just do the deliveries for them. So I come and go as I please. It's very stress-free to my comedy stuff and low demanding, which is really nice. I've been doing that with them for a couple years. And then I make content for a handful of companies at a time. Starting in September, I got to do stuff for the State Fair. I've done stuff for them for like the last 3 years in a row. I've made content for Meow Wolf, several different dispensaries, Sandia Credit Union. So that's one of my things is now that I figured out kind of content, I'll kind of pitch that to companies as like a partnership or a sponsorship, or I'd even really like to be faceless and be like, hey, I'll help you create your content, point you in the right direction, and kind of give them like a consultation fee more than. So you find ways to make money. I got OnlyFans, I got Only Toes, I got Only Bros. You know what I mean? There's a rule of 3 for you right there. Rule of 3. Yeah, so that's just, and yeah, man, that's really it, bro, for real. But I'll be honest, I do have some shows that pay really well. That's the hard part. You'll make $40, or sometimes you can make $1,000 or so, but that don't happen often. So don't think, ladies, don't hit me up thinking you're going to go to Fogo de Chao, all right? We're going to hot dog on a stick, and you're going to be happy, all right? Battered up, all right? And so, yeah, but you know what, man? And that's the biggest thing. And I've taken times in comedy where you take a job for better money, right? But now you're at a 9 to 5, or you're doing a 40-hour job. Like when I was in the cannabis industry, sometimes I was doing 40 to 60-hour weeks, traveling for that and not for comedy. And that's when I made the decision. I remember it was actually right before I got shot. It was the beginning of April in 2020 that I had stopped working in the cannabis industry, which I'd been in for over a decade. My dad owned a hydroponic store in Santa Fe. I grew extracted oils. I've done a little bit of everything in that realm. And it was just exhausting. It was taking up a lot of my time. And I was getting I remember like the manager didn't want to move me upward in my position because he's like, you're too invested in your comedy and not in this company. And I was like, damn, maybe I just need to do this comedy thing. And I took the dive, did it full time for about a year. But sadly, I did that in April. I got shot on April 20th. So it's like I took a few months to heal up and stuff like that. And then I think at like the next year is when I picked up a side gig at the coffee shop. But the whole time you're hustling, doing comedy, making content, selling feet pics out in the petroglyphs,
But I'm sure you get this all the time. You're a comedian, but tell us a joke.
Tell us a joke.
I'm like, bro, you got to buy a ticket, baby boy. I already got these quads out for you. Isn't that enough? Look at that. Look at that. I'll give you a little bit of a joke. I always talk about my pops is like super supportive of my comedy, right? And he's a wild looking dude. If you haven't seen my pops, he's a little Latino dude, from Santa Fe, New Mexico. But my dad looks like he owns a Hot Topic. I'm not playing. Like every day he wears black ripped skinny jeans, Doc Marten boots, silver skull rings on every finger, and different color contacts in his eyes. He's 5'3", so very relatable to you. No, for real. My dad showed up to my show last week. He looked like Mexican Blade. I'm not even playing. He looked like a Latino Undertaker character. Yeah. But like I said, always supportive of my comedy. He loves to come with me on the road and stuff. And even when I was growing up, he's always been there for me. But if I was ever in like a pinch, he would never just give me like money for bills. You know what I mean? If I was hurting. But he'd give me like 10 ounces of weed. And he'd be like,
do what you need to do.
You could do whatever with it. I'm like, that's pretty smart if you think about it. It's pretty biblical, actually. Because if you give your son one joint, he could smoke for a night. But if you teach your son how to hustle, he could smoke for a lifetime. So that's there we go, a little Catholic fucking pun in there for you guys.
Appreciate you, man.
Yep. How has comedy changed your life? Does it kind of change your perspective of the way you see life? Completely,
man. I felt like I've always had, my pops really is like that, and he's like anti everything. And in the way that rubbed off on me in a bit. Like, I'm very anti-establishment, very against the grain. I've never liked wearing the same thing people was wearing, listening to the same people, music people were listening to. I've always really been like into my own shit. And with comedy, it very much gave me a way to express myself, for sure. Because I was breaking a lot before that. Like I said, not good. You know what it's like to be a 30-year-old b-boy and lose to a 7-year-old? And he has to go home and play Minecraft and I have rent due? You know what that feels like to your self-esteem? Not good. Not good. So comedy gave me a way to, it was another outlet for sure. But I think the hardest thing about comedy is people see the version who I am online, on my stories, and they take that as 100% who you are all the time. And, you know, being an entertainer, whether you're a comedian or musician or stripper, you're always filling up other people's cup. Like, that's our job, is to make you feel better. We're your night out, where there's very few people filling your cup up. So you got to find ways to fill your cup up, to refill your social energy, whatever it may be. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the hardest part, is just really staying balanced, bro. Especially even, I mean, there is no high like killing on stage. Like, when you're killing, but then you got to get off stage and go to a hotel room all by yourself. That's like a weird balance.
Yeah.
Because you were the dude an hour ago in front of hundreds of people. They wanted to buy you drinks. They wanted to hang out. And now you're just like in a hotel room, still up, and then, so you got to find ways to balance all these energies out. All right, self-care. I'm that self-care bad boy. That's why you got to stay balanced. So I got these short shorts on, dude. So I could just, I got to let it breathe. I didn't know we were going to have, I thought it was going to be tops up. That's what it really was.
Tops up. That's fine. What do you do in order, like, what you personally do in order to stay balanced?
You know, I still am very active. Like, you know, the buddy Jimmy that you had in, that's actually one of my really close friends. I am still really into like lifting weights. That's always just gonna be a hobby for me. But my friends are, you know, my coach is Dion, who was telling you guys about at the end.
Yeah.
I really like that. I don't dance as much as I used to, but I was breaking heavy for over a decade. Like, before comedy, I was doing that, competing, going to battles out of state with my crew and stuff like that. And I think those things honestly gave me that discipline in comedy, for sure. Little stuff, bro, walking my dogs at night, you know, those little things you have to decompress, enjoying the moments in between the moments.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Finding good people, you know what I mean? Like, it was dope to see you, because we've only known each other through doing events with Leon.
Right.
So this is the first time I've ever got to sit down in conversation. So enjoying the moments in between the moments, meeting a dope new person. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's where you find how to enjoy this.
You find yourself present in
yeah, definitely. It's, you got to slow down once in a while, man. It's so, you know, even today, it's like I had to get, you know, I'm booking a run next month that I had to set up all the headshots for, and then my show that I'm doing all the promotion and same thing for, well, you know, setting up, you know, the daily job and stuff like that. Like, it's so easy to get wrapped up in the daily and not slow down and just catch your breath with the homies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For sure. So
absolutely.
I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I know you want to make people's night as far as like trying to be funny and stuff, but how do you balance of not crossing the line as far as, you know, like when it comes to racism, religion, culture?
Ooh, man. You know what? I am very, okay, it's crazy that you asked that. And that's a great question. By the way, how do you not cross the line? Is something too far, right? I personally believe you can talk about anything as long as you're not being malicious with the way you're talking about it. And the crowd could tell, right? Like I said, I do talk about tough topics. I talk about my grandfather passing away from cancer, me dealing with that. I talk about getting shot on stage. But that joke where I talk about it getting shot, it's not about gun control or gun violence. It's about what I went through in my experience. You know what I'm saying? So, but I'm also very playful, man. Like, I love roasting. I love doing crowd work. But like I said, I think the biggest way to be able to do that is to bring the audience together. Once you have, as the comedian, right, we're like the tour guide. They're all on the ride, and we're the one on running it. We're the tour guide. If they trust you, you could take them anywhere. But if they don't like you and they don't trust you, they ain't gonna fuck with you, even if your jokes are good. likability is one of the, like, that's what I learned in comedy. Like, likability could be one of your biggest strengths. If you could get on stage and immediately be likable, you could win over the audience and do those more testy jokes or testy subjects. But if you don't win over the audience or aren't likable, it makes it really hard to dive into darker material or deeper material, especially if you have like really hard stances on it. You also got to be aware of where you're going. If I go to Denver, I'm not gonna be like, I fucking love Trump, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? They're super liberal, and vice versa. If you go to somewhere super, you know, a small town like Roswell that's super conservative, you know, you're not gonna be like on the other end of that. You know what I mean? So read the audience, know your room, try to be as likable as quickly, and then you could get wild with it. You know what I mean? So, but, you know, like I said, that's the biggest thing. I think if the audience don't fuck with you, it makes it hard to get off some tougher material for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here, bro, telling your life
Appreciate
story,
it,
bro.
man. I got my monthly show at Marble Heights. Check it out. Find me on Instagram, Zach Abeyta Comedy, TikTok, YouTube, Only Bros. I know you subscribed. I saw it yesterday. So, but no, thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate you guys doing what you're doing and giving the New Mexico artist, comedian a place to, you know, have their voice.
I got you, man. I
Thank
got
you,
you.
man.
Wish you best of luck in your career,
Hopefully.
man.
I appreciate you.
I got you,
a
bro.
lot, for sure.
Before we end today's podcast, guys, I want to give a huge shout out to our two main sponsors. We got Hookah Kings, the top-rated hookah lounge in New Mexico, and Merino Media, quality content for your business and image. I'll see you guys next time on The Smart Talk.